Have you ever heard a sentence that's technically true, but at the same time just totally absurd? Well, today we're going to dive into a philosophical puzzle that's all about that weird space where language, logic, and belief crash into each other. It sounds pretty simple at first, but trust me, the more you think about it, the weirder it gets. So let me just ask you this straight up. Can a single, perfectly normal sentence be factually correct and yet completely ridiculous for anyone to actually say out loud? I mean, think about that for a second. It feels like the answer should be no, right?
Okay, here it is. Consider this sentence. It is raining, but I don't believe it is raining. Go on, say it to yourself. Something about it just feels wrong, doesn't it? It sounds completely impossible. But what is it exactly that makes it so strange?
To figure that out, we've got to break this thing down. On the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, but that's where the trap is hiding.
Okay, so if we just split the sentence in half, there's no real problem. The first part, it is raining, that's just a statement about the weather, a fact. The second part, I don't believe it is raining, that's a statement about what's going on inside your head. And here's the thing, logically, both can be true at the same time. It could absolutely be raining outside, and you could, for whatever reason, genuinely not believe it. So if both halves can be true, what gives? Where's the problem? Well, it's not in the logic. The contradiction isn't on paper. The absurdity comes from the act of saying it. The moment a person actually says this sentence out loud and means it, the whole thing just falls apart. And this gets us right to the heart of the puzzle. It's this incredible conflict between what's logically possible and what's possible to actually assert. It shows us there's a huge gap between what can be true in the world and what a person can actually say and still make sense. Here's why it's so self-defeating. When you state something as a fact, you're also, without saying it, telling people, hey, I believe this. It's this basic, unspoken rule of communication. So you start by asserting the fact that it's raining, which implies you believe it. But then, in the very same breath, you turn around and say you don't believe it. You're creating what's called a pragmatic contradiction, basically a communication breakdown, even though the logic itself holds up.
Now, this whole weird puzzle, this tension between what's true and what you can say, isn't just some random riddle. It actually has a name, and it's been twisting philosophers' brains for decades. It's called Moore's paradox, and it's exactly this. A statement that is perfectly sound logically, but becomes completely absurd and self-defeating the second someone tries to say it sincerely. And yep, it gets its name from the guy who first spotted it, a British philosopher named G.E. Moore. He was the one who realized that our words do way more than just describe the world. They also send a powerful signal about our own beliefs about it.
So you might be thinking, okay, cool, it's an abstract puzzle, why does this matter? Well, it actually pulls back the curtain on something really profound about how our minds work and how we even present ourselves to the world. You can think of the paradox as a close cousin to a term you've probably heard before, cognitive dissonance. You know, that really uncomfortable mental feeling we get when we hold two conflicting beliefs at once, like saying, I know this is bad for me, but I don't really think it will hurt me. Moore's paradox is like taking that internal conflict and just speaking it out loud. It makes the invisible struggle visible. And the implications of this pop up in some really big fields. In philosophy, it gets to the very core of what it means to know versus believe. In psychology, like we said, it's tied to things like cognitive dissonance. And what I find fascinating is its role in AI. How in the world do you program a machine to understand belief in a human way? And this really does lead to a mind-bending question for the future of AI. How would you code that? Could you ever have an artificial intelligence sincerely say, I have calculated the answer, but I don't believe it's the right one? To do that, it would need more than just logic. It would need a model of its own mind, its own set of beliefs. That's a huge, huge challenge. So what's the big takeaway here? Moore's paradox is this perfect little reminder that our language is never neutral. Every time we speak, we aren't just rattling off facts. We are literally opening a window into our own minds, revealing what we believe and how we see the truth. And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. If the simple act of talking can create such a deep, weird contradiction between what's true and what we say we believe, what does that tell us about the nature of knowledge itself? How certain can any of us really be about what we claim to know?